Welcome to the deep dive. If you're listening, you probably want to learn better, remember more, and maybe feel a bit less swamped by all the information out there.
Yeah, we definitely get that. It's a common feeling.
So today, that's exactly what we're tackling.
We're diving into Helmut D. Sacks's book, Remember Everything You Want and Manage the Rest. Think of it as a user manual for your memory.
A user manual, I like that. So the mission here is to pull out practical techniques, things people can actually use.
Exactly. Stuff to improve focus, get information into your memory effectively that's encoding, and then pull it back out when you need it. Recall.
Right. Helping people build what Sachs calls that virtuous circle of learning.
That's the goal. So, where do we even start with building a better memory, according to Sachs?
Well, he argues it starts with something pretty fundamental, something we maybe don't think about enough. Just paying attention.
Attention, right?
You know those moments, right? Where are my keys? Did I definitely turn the stove off? That kind of thing.
Oh, definitely. All the time.
And Sachs basically says the reason we forget is often because we weren't really paying attention when we put the keys down or turned the stove off.
Exactly. Attention is like the bouncer at the door of your memory club.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Seriously. Sachs talks about the stages of memory, and attention is stage one. If you're not focused, the information doesn't even get past the velvet rope. It never makes it into short-term memory, let alone long-term.
Okay, so it just washes away. So how do we actually improve that initial attention, especially for those everyday things? Does he give concrete strategies?
He does, yeah. And they're simpler than you might think, but apparently quite effective. One is literally saying your actions out loud.
Saying them out loud, like...
Like, as you turn off the stove, you actually say, I am switching off the stove now. And you look at it.
Yeah.
Or, I am putting my keys on the hook. Sounds a bit silly, maybe, but it forces you to be present in that moment, creates a stronger initial trace.
A verbal confirmation for your brain. And he also mentions having designated spots for things, right? That habit thing.
Super important. Always put your keys in the same bowl, your wallet in the same spot on the dresser. That consistency acts like an external cue. Even if your mind wanders for a second when you put it down, the habit helps you find it later.
Okay. And if you're still drawing a blank?
Then he suggests mentally retracing your steps. Just run back through the last few minutes or actions in your mind. Where were you? What did you do next?
Like hitting rewind. Okay. Now, you mentioned attention is the gatekeeper, but what are the things that, try to crush the gate? Sachs talks about multitasking.
Ah, yes. Public enemy number one for attention, according to the research he cites. Trying to juggle too many things at once. It tanks your short-term memory and how well you do each task.
Why is that?
Well, our short-term memory capacity is actually pretty small. It can only hold a few chunks of information at a time, and research suggests it even shrinks a bit as we age.
Oh, great.
Yeah, tell me about it. So multitasking just overloads that limited capacity. Things get dropped.
It's like trying to have 3 conversations at once. You don't really hear any of them properly.
Perfect analogy. And it's not just external distractions. Sachs points out our own internal dots, emotions can be just as bad, if not worse.
You mean like worrying about something or being really excited?
Exactly. If you're totally preoccupied with, a big work deadline or maybe a new relationship, it's really hard to focus fully on, say, trying to learn some complex new material. Your attention is divided.
So the big attention stealers are mind-wandering, outside distractions, getting lost in our own thoughts, and trying to do too much at once. Multitasking.
Yep, those are the main culprits.
So we need ways to sort of build focus, push those distractions out. He talks about time boxing.
Time boxing. It's a great technique. Basically, you dedicate a specific block of time, say 20 minutes, to start exclusively to one task. No interruptions.
Use a timer.
Yeah, definitely use a timer. It creates a boundary. For those 20 minutes, you're only doing that one thing. It really helps train your focus.
And 20 minutes is just a suggestion, right? It depends on the person.
Totally. You find your own sweet spot. Maybe start with 10 or 15 minutes if 20 feels too long. The key is the focused, uninterrupted block.
And crucially, he says take breaks after the time box.
Yes, very important. Short breaks, like 5 or 10 minutes, get up, walk around, stretch, do something totally different. He suggests this helps the information you just took in to sort of consolidate, to sink in.
Let your brain breathe and process. Okay. He also mentions meditation briefly as a focus tool.
Yeah, specifically a technique linked to Herbert Benson's relaxation response. It's not about emptying the mind completely, but more about practicing focus.
How does that work?
You pick a simple word or phrase, sit quietly, breathe comfortably, and just repeat the word silently with each exhale. When your mind wanders, and it will find it. You just gently notice it and bring your focus back to the word.
So it's like weightlifting for your attention muscle.
Kind of, yeah. You're practicing bringing your focus back again and again, builds that ability over time.
Okay, so we've got attention sorted, or at least we know how important it is. Now, how do we actually make things stick long term? Sachs has this acronym, AVECPO.
AVECPO, exactly. It's like the recipe for building strong memories. Stands for association, visualization, elaboration, combination, practice, which is recall, and organization.
Wow, okay, let's break that down.
They're the building blocks. And, Sachs points out it's easier to remember stuff if it connects to things you already know. Familiarity helps.
Makes sense. So association and visualization first. He uses that banana and Toyota example, right?
Hmm. The yellow banana on the road and the red Toyota dragging over it, squishing it.
Okay, vivid.
The key word there is over, the interaction. Just picturing them side by side isn't as strong. For a good association, Sachs says, the things need to be doing something to each other.
Ah, the action makes the link stronger.
Definitely. Research apparently shows interactive images, especially ones that explain the relationship between things, are much better for memory.
And why is visualization itself so powerful?
Well, a few reasons. Our brains seem wired to remember pictures better than just words. Plus, it makes learning more engaging, maybe even fun. And, historically, it's ancient. Greek and Roman orators used visualization techniques to memorize incredibly long speeches.
Wow, okay. And there's also the self-reference effect.
Yeah, basically linking new information to yourself, your own experiences, feelings, life, makes it way more memorable. So when learning something new, take a second and think, how does this relate to me?
Make it personal. Got it. Next is elaboration. Sounds like going deeper.
It is. It's about enriching the information, connecting it more deeply to what you already know. One technique Sachs mentions is elaborative interrogation.
Which means?
Simply asking why. Questions about the information. Why is this true? Why does this work this way? Why is this important?
Okay.
Asking why pushes you beyond just memorizing facts. You start understanding the reasons, the connections. It makes the information less arbitrary so it sticks better, and you can reason with it more effectively.
So you're actively wrestling with the material, not just passively receiving it. Okay, C is combination visual and verbal.
Right. Sachs stresses using both channels. If you're reading text, look for diagrams or images that illustrate it. If you see an image, think about the words that describe it.
Like creating two paths to the same memory in your brain.
Exactly. More pathways mean stronger recall.
Makes sense. Now, P practice, or specifically recall practice. This sounds critical.
Absolutely critical. Use it or lose it, right? Sachs cites this old study by A.I. Gates,
Oh, yeah.
where students learned biographical facts. The groups that spent more time reciting the facts back to themselves rather than just rereading remembered way more. The best group spent something like 60% of their time actively recalling and only 40% reading.
Wow, 60% testing yourself. That's way more than most people probably do.
Probably. It shows that actively pulling the information out of your brain is what really strengthens the memory trace.
So put the book down and try to explain it. What are the tips for doing recall practice effectively?
Okay, first, try to complete the whole test or recall attempt before you check the answers. Apparently, delaying that feedback actually helps long-term memory.
Interesting. Don't peak too soon.
Right. Second, multiple recall sessions spaced out over time are much, much better than one big cramming session.
Spaced repetition again.
Like, recall a few minutes after learning, then maybe later that day, then the next day. Fight that forgetting curve.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, use active recall questions, things like short answer or fill in the blank where you have to produce the answer yourself. Those are generally better for strengthening memory than just recognizing the answer, like in multiple choice.
Active retrieval, not just passive recognition.
Okay.
Got it. Last one. Or organization.
Right. Giving information structure makes it easier to store and find later, like organizing files on a computer.
How can we organize information for memory?
Sachs mentions several ways. Chronological order, step-by-step sequences, spatially, like arranging things on a map, cause and effect, comparing and contrasting. But he really highlights categorization, grouping similar items together.
Like putting things into mental buckets. Why does that help?
Well, the category name itself becomes a retrieval cue. Thinking European capitals helps you recall Paris, Berlin, Rome. Also, you can treat the whole category as one chunk in your memory, which is easier to handle.
Ah, chunking.
Yeah. He suggests keeping categories relatively small, maybe 5 items max per category, to avoid overload. He uses the example of memorizing EU countries, maybe group them geographically, or use an acronym for a small group. Structure is key.
Okay, so that's AVECPO, association, visualization, elaboration, combination, practice, recall, organization, the core building blocks. But then there are also specific tricks, right? Mnemonics.
Exactly. Mnemonics are like memory hacks. They impose structure or use vivid imagery to make things stick.
Like acronyms, PEM days for math, ROYG, BIV for the rainbow colors, we know those.
Mhm. Acronyms help with recall and order. Sachs also mentions acrostics, those sentences where the first letter of each word stands for something like, "My very eager mother just served us noodles for the planets."
Right.
And he's this really neat idea for using acrostics to create strong passwords.
Passwords, how?
You make up a sentence that's memorable to you, could be silly, could be meaningful. Then you use the first letter of each word, maybe mix in numbers or symbols from the sentence, to create a complex password that you can actually remember because you just need to remember the sentence.
That is actually really clever and useful. Okay, what else? The link system.
The link system is pure visualization and association. You create a story linking items you want to remember. His example is for groceries: milk, apples, kettle, bread.
Okay.
So you might picture a huge milk jug, pouring milk onto some bright red apples.
Mm-hmm.
The apples then bounce into a whistling kettle,
Right.
and the steam from the kettle forms into loaves of bread.
Mm-hmm.
The crazier and more interactive the links, the better you remember the sequence.
A mental chain reaction, I can see that working. What about abstract ideas? They're hard to visualize.
True, that's where substituting concrete items comes in. You find a concrete word or image that sounds like or reminds you of the abstract term.
Like his Botswana example.
Yeah,
Beach, algae, angel.
exactly. Botswana doesn't bring an image to mind easily. So maybe boat for bot and swan, or even swamp algae for swana. Then link those concrete images, maybe an angel swimming with swans on a boat in algae. It gives your brain something tangible to grab onto.
Creating a visual stand-in. Okay. Then there's a keyword method. Is that similar?
It's a specific type of link system, really good for vocabulary, especially foreign languages or technical terms. You find a word in your own language, the keyword, that sounds like part of the foreign word.
Okay.
Then you create an image linking your keyword to the meaning of the foreign word. His example is Fallschirm, German for parachute.
Right. Fall plus chair.
So you picture someone falling out of a plane but landing safely in a chair attached to a parachute. Links the sound, fall chair, to the meaning, parachute.
Very clever. And the hippocampus example, too. A hippo on campus with a compass. These memorable images seem key. What about remembering names? That's a huge one for so many people.
Oh yeah, definitely a common struggle. Sachs stresses, first off, pay attention during the introduction. Really listen. Ask them to repeat it if needed. Confirm pronunciation.
Make an effort up front.
Then he suggests the face name mnemonic. Find a distinctive feature on the person's face.
Okay, like prominent nose, glasses, distinctive hair.
Right. Then create a keyword or image that sounds like their name and link it to that feature. His example: meet Mr. Miller. Notice his large ears. Picture a miller grinding grain, maybe with huge ears or grain spilling out of his ears.
Okay, linking the name sound to the face feature.
Exactly. He even gives lists of potential image substitutes for common names to help. And, simple tip, write the name down soon after meeting them, maybe with a note about where you met. Just the act of writing helps.
Good point. So mnemonics provide these frameworks, but learning something once, even with a mnemonic, doesn't guarantee it stays, right? We need review.
Absolutely. Space review is crucial. Just rereading notes isn't very efficient. You forget things, you don't know what you really know, and you waste time on stuff you've already mastered.
So how do we review smarter? He mentions the Leitner box system.
Yeah, the Leitner box. It's a classic system using physical flashcards and several boxes. Box 1 is for daily review, Box 2 every few days, Box 3 weekly, and so on.
How does it work?
Simple. If you get a card right from Box 1, it moves to Box 2. Get it right from Box 2, it moves to Box 3. But if you get a card wrong from any box, it goes all the way back to Box 1.
So the ones you struggle with get reviewed much more often.
Exactly. It forces you to focus effort where it's needed. It's adaptive, in a low-tech way.
And there are digital versions now, too, like Sprite that he mentions.
Yeah, lots of apps use the same principle, spaced repetition software, or SRS. You make digital flashcards, maybe with images or audio. The software tracks your answers and schedules when to show you each card again based on how well you know it.
It takes the manual sorting out of it.
Pretty much. And Sachs really pushes using images on flashcards whenever you can. Visuals boost memory.
Good tip. For language learning flashcards, any specific advice?
Definitely test yourself both ways.
Hmm.
Native language to foreign and foreign back to native. crucial for fluency.
Okay.
Also, maybe don't try to learn lots of similar words together, like all the words for car, bus, truck at once can cause confusion initially. Learn them in context.
Makes sense. And make good cards. One meaning per card, clear pronunciation, maybe an image.
Yep. And he mentions an enhanced keyword method for languages too.
Enhanced. What's the extra bit?
You take the basic keyword idea, but you add a specific anchor, like a famous landmark or object from the country where the language is spoken.
Ah, adding cultural context.
Right. So you link your native word, the foreign sound-alike keyword, and this cultural anchor image all together. He suggests picture dictionaries or kids' books in the language can be good sources for these anchor images.
That sounds really immersive. Okay, we've covered encoding, storage, review. What about recalling things in a specific order? Like speeches, lists, procedures?
That's where mental filing systems come in. Sachs talks about pig systems like number rhymes. One bun, two shoe, three tree. You associate items with these rhyming pegs.
Right.
But the main one he focuses on is the method of loci, or the memory palace.
The memory palace always sounds so cool. How does it work?
You choose a place you know really, really well, like your house or your walk to work, a familiar route.
Okay.
Then you mentally place images representing the things you want to remember at specific, distinct spots along that route or in that place. Location 1 gets image 1, location 2 gets image 2, and so on.
So you're using the spatial memory of the location as the structure.
Exactly. To recall, you just mentally walk through your memory palace, and the images waiting at each location trigger the information you stored there in the correct order.
What makes a good memory palace?
Familiarity is key. Distinct locations within it. Don't make them too similar. Maybe decide on a set number of spots per room, like 5, to keep it organized. And you can always expand it. Imagine more rooms. Use your childhood home, your town.
Use your imagination. He even suggests using it for pins.
Yeah, associate each digit with a location in a familiar 4-spot sequence.
Clever, and you can combine it with the link system.
At each location in your palace, instead of just one image, you can place a short linked story involving multiple items. He gives an example of memorizing U.S. states and capitals by creating mini-stories at landmarks in Central Park.
Stacking techniques. Okay. Now, numbers are tricky. He mentions the phonetic number system.
Yes, this is a classic, powerful system. It converts digits 0-9 into specific consonant sounds.
Why consonants?
Because you can then insert vowels freely to turn those consonant sequences into actual visualizable words. And words are much easier to remember than abstract numbers.
Ah, okay. So there's a code to learn. Like 1 is T or D, 2 is N, 3 is M.
Exactly. There's a standard mapping. You learn the sounds for each digit. Then for a number like, say, 32, you have M and N sounds. You can make the word man or moon.
Okay.
And you link these words together using visualization. For the moon landing, 1969, 19 could be tub, TD plus PB sounds. 69 could be sheep, FJCH plus PB sounds. Picture a sheep taking a bath in a tub on the moon.
Wow. That takes practice, I bet.
It does require learning the code up front, but it's incredibly powerful for long numbers, dates, phone numbers. He also briefly mentions the Dominic system, which uses pre-memorized people and actions for number pairs. Faster maybe, but more initial setup.
Okay, so powerful tools for structured recall. Now let's shift gears, the modern world, information overload, especially online. How does Sachs suggest managing that?
Yeah, a huge challenge. He acknowledges the shift from paper to the web. For managing online stuff, he recommends bookmarking tools, specifically mentioning Diigo.
Bookmarking, okay. But isn't that just endless lists?
That's where tagging comes in. Instead of just folders, you use keywords, tags, to label your bookmarks. A single article about, say, memory techniques in education could have both tags. Much more flexible than folders.
So you can find things by subject, regardless of which folder it might be in.
Exactly. Consistency in tagging is key, though. But he warns bookmarks are just links, and web pages disappear.
Right. Link rot.
So for stuff you really need to keep, especially for research or long-term projects, he advocates building a personal digital library. And he recommends Zotero for that.
Zotero. What's that?
It's free software, really popular in academia. Lets you save not just the link, but the actual page content, a snapshot, plus all the citation information with one click. It builds your own searchable archive.
So Diigo for casual bookmarking and discovery, Zotero for serious saving and research.
That's the kind of two-step process he suggests. Zotero lets you organize items into collections, like project folders, and also use tags, just like Diigo. You can even import standard subject headings from databases.
Making your personal library searchable like a real one. And it helps with citations.
Big time. It can automatically format bibliographies in tons of different styles. Huge time saver for students or researchers.
Sounds indispensable. Okay, so we've gathered and organized information. What about engaging with it? Annotation comes up.
Mm-hmm. Actively marking up what you read. With Diigo, you can highlight web pages and add digital sticky notes right there. Those annotations are saved online with the bookmark.
Accessible anywhere.
Yep. And you can export them. For PDFs, he suggests tools like PDF Exchange Viewer to highlight, add notes, even grab images of charts or figures.
Similar idea for Kindle books.
Exactly. Use the built-in highlight and note features. Those sync across devices, and you can see them online, even export them. Annotation makes reading active, not passive.
It forces you to identify key points. Speaking of which, he also talks about outlining as a memory and understanding tool.
Right. Creating an outline forces you to structure the information, see the main points, and how they relate. He likes expandable, collapsible outlines because you can use them to test yourself.
How?
Hide the subpoints under a main heading and try to recall them. Active recall again.
Sneaky. And he gives rules for summarizing effectively within an outline.
Yeah, like deleting trivial stuff, getting rid of redundant info, using broader terms, finding or inventing a topic sentence for each chunk, and crucially writing it in your own words.
Own words is key for real understanding.
Definitely.
Yeah.
He suggests focusing on the main idea first, using the text structure, like compare contrast or cause effect, to help identify it. You can even add tags within your outline like idea or to do to mark things for later.
So annotation and outlining are about actively processing, making the information yours. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground from basic attention.
Through building memory blocks with AVECPO, using mnemonic tricks, spaced review, mental filing systems like the Memory Palace.
All the way to managing digital info with tags and Zotero and actively engaging through annotation and outlining.
It's a really comprehensive toolkit Sachs lays out. The message really is you can take control of your learning and memory. You have strategies now.
So for everyone listening, the idea isn't to suddenly do all of this tomorrow, right?
Goodness, no. That would be overwhelming. Sachs would likely suggest picking one or two techniques that really resonated with you today. Maybe try time boxing for focus, or the keyword method for some tricky terms you need to learn.
Start small, be consistent.
Exactly. Consistency is where the real change happens. And see it as an ongoing journey. Keep exploring. Find what works for your brain and the kind of information you deal with.
Right. So maybe a final thought to leave people with.
Yeah.
Consider how consciously applying just one of these ideas, maybe that interactive visualization, or setting up a simple spaced recall schedule for something important, how could that change how you learn something new this week?
Worth thinking about. Thanks for digging into this with me.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.